Yeah, yeah. So these are the 4 things that we're going to learn about today in greater detail. Okay. We've got a Republican president coming in after 8 years of a Democrat. He's going to want to change some things. Okay. So we're going to do a lot on tariffs today, a little bit on taxes, and a little bit on this aid to disabled soldiers and farmers today. Okay. That'll be really what we cover. Okay. So kind of a deep dive into that. Might get into something called war debts if we have a little bit of time. I did get through with my other classes today, and being that, well, we got longer schedule with everybody today. So we're going to the next slide. And you may have seen this yesterday. Okay, tariffs. I'm bringing this out a little bit. I did figure out how to make it the widescreen again. So yeah. It always kind of works like this. I bring in somebody to help me, and then I figure it out while they're trying to help me, and I'm like, oh, I'm so stupid, right? So that was me this morning. Okay, so anyhow, the Canadians, talked about this yesterday. The Canadians figured out how to grow wheat, and so they were undercutting American wheat. Okay, I did a little reading on this this morning, before school, and I looked up the Ford Name and Cover Act. It's in your textbook that you don't have, and so forth. But one of the things I talked about, this was trying to help not just farmers, but industrialists. So people that make cars, toasters, refrigerators, washing machines, radios, all kinds of stuff, okay? You guys all know who Henry Ford was, right? And what was the car he made, the first car he made? The Model T. Yeah, and later on in 1927, he's going to come out with the Model A. Okay. Henry Ford and Ford Motor Company dominated the domestic market. He sold way more cars than any other. Now, there were a bunch of different car manufacturers, but Ford dominated. What Ford wanted was to sell cars in Europe as well. Okay, so when we put these tariffs on foreign competition, and they turn around and put tariffs on our goods, how's Henry Ford going to be doing selling cars in Europe? Going to raise the price. Okay, remember, who pays the price for the tax? The consumer. Okay, so when we put a tax on Canadian farm products, their wheat, you got to pay more for it. Now, if you were the baker and you wanted to buy the wheat from Canada for $2 a bushel, think how much more money you could make if you were a baker, if you could buy the cheap wheat instead of $4 a bushel from American farmers. That means American bakers would make a lot more money. Is that fair to the baker? Or is it more important to protect the farmer? These are the types of questions we have to ask ourselves as a nation. Okay? Now, on the test, I'm going to ask you to write about this. The easy answer, of course, is how did tariffs clog the flow of trade, international trade? Well, the easy answer is this. We put tariffs on their stuff, they put tariffs on our stuff. But I really want you to get to understand this part of it, that the European producers needed to sell their stuff here so that they had money to buy our stuff. It's kind of a free trade idea, if you will. And we'll get into that a little bit more detail in a minute. But I want to use something that kind of strikes close to home to explain this. Okay? How many of you guys are wearing Sperry's? Look around. About half the class. Okay? Now, in first hour, almost the whole class, hands went up. Now, Sperry's. Where are your Sperry's made? Take them off. I'm wearing Skechers. These are made in Vietnam. What you got? Where are your shoes made? Any of your shoes? Pakistan. That's a new one. See it? Is it on there? Ah, shoot. Try the other foot. What do you got? China. Bangladesh. Indonesia. And wow. That's a new one. That's crazy. Okay. Vietnam. Okay, like mine are from Vietnam. Now, you guys know Tin, right? So I asked him, he's in my 0 hour now, and I asked him, I said, okay, so if you're built making these shoes in Vietnam, the ones I'm wearing, which are the really cool, like slip on, flip off ones, okay? How much is a factory worker making in Vietnam to make these shoes? And he said, maybe $2 an hour. Okay. Well, you know, their currency over there is called the dong, D-O-N-G. Okay. I said, well, how much does it cost to buy lunch in Vietnamese money and the dong? He said like 20,000 dong. Okay. That's inflation. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay. Now, so for the sake of argument, we're going to say that Sperry's are made in London. This is England here, Great Britain, United Kingdom. This is the United States. Okay. How much did you pay for your Sperry's? $100? Somebody? What else? How much? So a couple people paid $100. Anybody else? How much you pay for your shoes? 50? 80? 50? Okay. All right, let's just throw an average together. Okay. So you would classify those shoes as what? Business casual shoes? Huh? What? Business casual shoes? Okay. So let's say they're selling a bunch of shoes over there. Now let's say there is a shoe company out in the US of A, in Nebraska, called New Balance. Okay? What kind of shoes does New Balance make? Dad shoes?
No, the new ones are tough, like the 240 Rs.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Like they're athletic shoes, tennis shoes, right? Walking shoes, stuff like that. Well, let's say they want to get into the casual dress shoe market. Okay, now, in order to use American leather and pay American employees to build a quality shoe that will compete with Sperry, they're going to have to charge $90 a pair. Okay, now some of you that paid $50 for your Sperry's, you're like, I'm not paying $90. Well, what if the government comes in and says, listen, we're going to put a tariff on these and make them more expensive, where they wouldn't sell for less than $100. Now, some of you paid $100, but you could get a quality American-made shoe supporting American jobs for $90. What are you going to do? Well, if you're the $50 person, you're probably buying the $90 shoe. Yes? Okay, now, Sperry's going to sell fewer shoes in America. All right? Shake your head. Yes, you're right, Mr. Ebright. Okay, so what happens back at the factory at Sperry, where they're making the shoes? What happens? They're selling fewer shoes in America, and they were selling a boatload. Now they're not selling a boatload. What happens at the factory? People lose their jobs. There's layoffs, guys, right? Yes? Okay. Now, so people, London, are making less money. Now, I didn't know if you knew this or not. There's a company out here in Silicon Valley, California, called Dell. They make what? Computers. That one right there is a Dell, okay? And I don't know if you knew this. Again, the people in London love to buy Dell computers. Favorite brand. Actually, I'm just making that up, but it's their favorite brand. Okay. Now you have fewer people in London that can afford to buy Dell computers, yes? Because people lost their jobs. So what happens back at the factory in Dell where they're making computers? You see a slowdown, right? They lose their job, and people there have less money to buy any kind of shoe, let alone a New Balance shoe. You follow me? So this is the argument for free trade without tariffs. Okay, that you allow companies to compete globally. Okay, without tariffs. And mostly that's what we have today. Okay, but this is the answer, part of the answer I want on the test, the part that's underlined here. Why did tariffs clog international trade? Well, Europeans need to sell their products here so they could get money to buy our products there. Does that make sense to you? Can you explain this to me on the test? Okay. Now let's dig a little deeper in this to right 2023. Okay, over the last few years. Did I do this with you before? There once was a country called Spain. There once was a country called Spain who sent out explorers to the New World. Some of those Spaniards stumbled across a group of people called the Incas. And the Incas had a lot of what? Gold. And what did the Spanish do? They stole it. And they took it back to Spain. Now, the neighbors around Spain, the Portuguese, the French, and others, found out that the Spanish had all this gold, and they wanted some of that gold. So they started making products the Spanish would buy from them. And so the Spanish spent all that gold buying stuff made in other countries. And then Spain ran out of gold. And Spain was no longer relevant. It was no longer a powerful nation because it ran out of gold. It didn't make anything. See, most of the jobs that you guys will do when you get out of high school or college will be service industry jobs. You will be providing a service to somebody else. You won't actually be making anything, producing anything. Because most of that is done overseas. Why? You ever watch Shark Tank? Never watched Shark Tank? You seen Shark Tank? How many of you guys have seen Shark Tank? Okay, at least some people know what I'm talking about. This is where people come and try and pitch business ideas to investors. Okay? And when they bring in a product, they say, what is your production cost per unit? Yes? They say, if you can get that produced in China, you can bring down your production costs. Yes? And make more money, which is why most people go into business, is to make money. Yes? So guys, in the 1990s, the U.S. Congress passed something called NAFTA, or the North American Free Trade Agreement, where we said we're going to have free trade, no tariffs, between Canada, U.S., and Mexico. Now, if you made cars in Detroit and you worked on the assembly line for Ford Motor Company, in the mid-90s, the average hourly wage was $48 an hour to work on the assembly line at Ford. $48 an hour. Now, how did they get paid that high? Very powerful unions called the United Auto Workers Union. Okay. Then Bill Clinton signs into law the North American Free Trade Agreement. What does Ford do? Ford starts closing factories in Detroit and building them where? Mexico. Now, are you going to pay your new Mexican employees $48 an hour? Now, do you think the people in Mexico would be happy with $10 an hour? And how much more money is Ford going to make? A lot more money. You following me? How much would it cost to build these in the United States? Like, now this is an SE because I'm just not ready to give up the button yet. You know, the little button, okay? It's like $900 phone, $1,000 phone, right? Unless you get a deal, right? Switch carriers, Verizon or something, they give you a free phone. I don't know. You with me? How much would it cost to pay American workers? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. How many guys have jobs? Okay, keep your hand up if you work for minimum wage. Still working for minimum wage? Okay. Nobody's working for minimum wage? You're all making more than minimum wage? Good for you. So, how much are you going to pay somebody to make these shoes in America? You work in a factory making these shoes. These are kind of sweet, aren't they? I got buy one, get a second one half off. So I got a black pair that I wear as well. So I got bad feet, so like I needed like something that looked kind of nice, but these are nice. They're comfortable.
You seen Coach Trello's new sketches?
No?
They're great.
Are they sweet?
Yeah.
I had trouble with gray. And I was a little worried about these because it's too close to the color of the pants. Is it okay? Now this is salmon, not pink, right? Salmon. Coral. It's not pink. Okay? I don't have any pink. All right? Actually, I do have some. It was gifted. Okay. All right. So here we are today. It's 2023. We don't make jack squat in this country. We grow food. We make airplanes. We still make cars. Now, the cars that you drive, if it's a newer model, 2015 on, the parts that went into that car are likely to have come from close to 70 different countries. And today what we're doing is even foreign auto manufacturers like Toyota are assembling the cars in places like Huntsville, Alabama. Now, what's the cost of living in Huntsville, Alabama? Is it expensive to live in Huntsville? In the middle of nowhere, Alabama? No, you guys know that the cost of living in Wichita is extremely low compared to Kansas City, right? Like the amount of house you can buy in Wichita compared to KC is there's a pretty big difference now. I'm shocked at housing prices right now in Wichita. Like I have 2 houses on sale in my neighborhood. One just sold for $250 plus. Another one's listed for $270. Hasn't sold yet. My wife and I bought our house for $99,000 in 1995. It's now worth almost $300,000. Now wait a second, guys. This is middle class. I don't have a big old house. You know what I mean? Like my wife and I live pretty. Could we afford more house? Yeah. Would the bank loan us money for a bigger house? Yes, they would loan us money for sure. But we're not doing that. Okay, we don't need that big of a house. Okay, so we're not doing it. But listen, I worry about you guys. How in the heck are you going to afford a middle class house like that? I'm worried about my son. He's 23. I'm like, dude, how is he going to afford this? It's crazy, the housing market right now. I mean, it's good. Like my wife, ours is paid off. I mean, we could sell it for $300,000 right now and just take that cash and run. Move to the Bahamas. We live off that for a couple of years, and then we'd have to go back to work. Okay. Do that. Just go. Go to the beach. Missing out. Jeannie? How many of you guys have been to places like Destin, Gulf Shores, Alabama? Yeah, those beaches are nice, aren't they? That's where I grew up, down that way. Pensacola. I'm going back.
Why are you here?
Not ready to retire yet. Love my job. Love you guys. Love coaching baseball here. Love teaching. So as soon as my wife's ready, pull the trigger. We'll go. Moved here when I was 27 for her job. I went back to school, become a teacher.
What did you want to do?
I have a business degree from when I played college baseball. I never really used it. I ran a small business with my dad after college. I graduated from college in '91. We were in a recession. I had a bachelor's in business, okay? Nobody was hiring. So I did sales. 21-year-old. I don't know how to do sales. I don't even know how to talk to people. I can do sales now because I talk for a living, right? But when I'm 21, I don't know what I'm doing. So I came back home, ran a small publishing company with my dad where I had to do sales. And I didn't make any money. So we did that for like 2 years. But in order to save money for the business, I learned how to do graphic arts. So I could design on a computer. This is 1990s computers, okay, with 1990s software, okay, and I could manipulate clip art and that sort of thing and make print advertising for a restaurant or a clothing store or something like that would go into our publication on the beach. So I worked on the beach, selling advertising and then designing advertising. Now, I can't do that. This is impressive, okay? I can't do this. Okay? So my chances of being successful as a graphic artist in a professional world were not good. I made a living, wasn't a very good living, but I made a living. Worked for newspapers and stuff like that after the business failed because I couldn't sell. Okay? So I'm a failed small business owner, which is a great experience. Okay, just to have that experience. And then, so I got jobs, and that's when I met my wife, who was a chemical engineer, with an MBA. She's a master's in business, which I would say to any of you guys that are thinking about studying business in college, stay away from marketing, study finance or accounting. Doing finance, go ahead and get your MBA. Okay, get your master's in business and become a CPA, certified public accountant, and you'll make a good living. Finance, you can make a good living. Administration, business administration's okay. You're just going to be a boss. You know, you tell other people what to do. You can get into hospitality, which would be restaurant, hotel management, that sort of thing. Restaurant management is a tough living. Yes? Any of you guys have family that own restaurants? It's a tough living. Okay? You're there almost all the time. Okay? So, but if you love that, if that's your passion, that's okay. Okay, but passion is one thing. Like, I have a passion for this. I like doing this. So you guys got to think about that. You got to weigh that. Like, what do I like doing? I also like being outside. I get to do that with baseball. So a lot of people like being outside, not being sitting behind a desk for 8 hours a day. You know what I mean? So there's lots of things to do. You guys figure it out. Took me a while. I went back, started teaching when I was 29. And so I've taught for 26 years, so you can figure out about how old I am. Okay? A few more years. Okay, we gotta keep moving here. Okay, so any more questions? I like questions.
Where'd you play college baseball at?
Played at Chipola Junior College in North Florida, in the Panhandle of Florida, up north. And then Georgia Southwestern University, 2.5 hours southwest of Atlanta. My last 2 years. And so I moved to Atlanta after I graduated with my degree, looking for work. Sales. Now, some of you be good at sales. Like, you'd be good at sales. Yeah. Yeah. I think people like you. Huh? Kind of have that magnetism. No. What? What's wrong? Somebody that's quiet, that doesn't have much of a personality, that comes out, it's tough. You're selling yourself. When you're doing sales, you're selling yourself. You're endearing people to like, oh, I like this guy. I'll buy something for him. You know, help him out. Huh? Is he? How you do?
I still like membership.
Uh-huh. So the customer comes to you?
Yeah.
That's easier. When you got to go to the customer, that's hard. Yeah. So the sales is tough, but I tell you what, if you're good at it, find something that's really expensive to sell. Yeah. And then, you know, if you're selling big like tractor trailers or private jets, the commission on those are pretty good. When you're selling that something that's worth $10 million or real estate. Got a real estate agent family in the house? Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago it was great. It's not so great right now.
I got everything I wanted to.
Yeah. Okay. So you guys explain this to me on a test, okay? No, I'm not done with tariffs. Let's talk a little bit more on this. I want to talk about this. Okay. Guys, for the sake of our country, I want you to ponder this. Okay, would you rather be able to go to Sam's, Costco, Walmart, and buy cheap stuff made in China? Or would you rather have the opportunity for Americans to get a good paying job without having to go $10,000, $50,000 into debt going to college? Where you could go from high school to work in manufacturing and actually build something and make a good enough living to support a family. Which would you rather have? The problem, guys, is that we don't make anything in this country anymore. We do make planes, we do make some cars, we make food. But guys, U.S. Steel is dead. U.S. Steel used to be the backbone of the United States economy. We import almost all the steel we use in this country. We import all the tires that we use, almost everything we import. What if we made that here? How could the U.S. government say to Apple Incorporated, we want you to build those phones in America and provide American jobs, or to Sperry, we want you to make those shoes in America. What can the government do to make it attractive for businesses to stay here? What you got? What could they do? Cut the corporate income tax. So Donald Trump runs for president in 2016. When he took office in 2016, the corporate income tax in the United States was 28%, among the highest in the industrialized world. He cut, along with Congress, they cut the corporate income tax to 21%. So that means businesses, if they do business here, they keep more of that money, which they could spend on their employees, which is the most expensive part of doing business, is your labor costs. Okay? Now, I have an idea. If you're going to manufacture in the United States, like all the components you use for this are mostly made in the United States, and you build this in the United States, you're a manufacturing company, you pay 0 corporate income tax. The people that have good paying jobs, making these things, they will be paying taxes. What you're going to do is create a whole bunch of new taxpayers. And the more you pay them, the more they pay in taxes. Now, everybody's going to have to pay more for their goods. It could be more expensive. Okay? But everybody that wants a job can find a good paying job to support their families. We're talking about non-college educated people who suffer most in this society, in our society, are those without college degrees. Okay? Now, can you get by without a college degree in this country? Absolutely. You got to bust your ass. Okay? But that piece of paper makes life a little bit easier for you. You just look how much people make that have a college degree versus people that don't. Okay? It's there. It's a thing. Okay? So, the other option is to have cheap crap at Costco and Sam's. So I can go out and buy a 55-inch TV for $300. And if it breaks, am I going to take it to the TV repairman? No, I'm going to throw it in the landfill and go buy a new one. Because that's what we do in America. Okay, which is better? We're going to be Spain, where we make nothing, and therefore we become nothing. We're going to make America manufacturing giant it used to be. We have to make these decisions. Now, Trump said, we're going to put tariffs. This led to the Great Depression. When we're done with the notes, I'm going to have 6 causes of the Great Depression. This is number 1, tariffs. Okay? American farmers could not sell their crops overseas because of these tariffs. It killed our farmers. It killed our industry because they couldn't sell overseas either. Okay? So, I'm like, Trump wants to put on tariffs. What? What? That's a bad idea, right? How many people live in China? 1.2 billion people. Okay? The U.S., 330 million people. Who buys more of whose stuff? We buy $585 billion more of Chinese goods than they buy of ours. That's called a trade deficit of almost $600 billion. Yet they've got 4 times as many people as we do. Shouldn't they be buying more of our stuff? So Trump says, if I'm elected, I'm putting tariffs on Chinese goods. Oh, damn. I teach this. I'm like, I don't know, man. Is this a good idea? Okay. What did the Chinese do? They've started putting tariffs on our stuff, our farmers. So what did Trump do? Trump started using money from the U.S. Treasury to pay American farmers until he won this trade war against China. And then COVID hit. We never got to find out how this was going to play out. Okay. But, guys, is Trump right? Shouldn't they buy more of our food? Shouldn't they buy more of our stuff? $600 billion trade deficit? Maybe he's got a point. And if he did cut the manufacturing taxes or the corporate income taxes. So hopefully some American businesses would do business here, make stuff here instead over there. Okay, and as you guys see, Pakistan, Indonesia, Dominican Republic, Vietnam, Taiwan, all those places, Mexico. Okay. It's a way to make money. Now, if you want to get in on some of that money that's going overseas, what do? Buy stock in those companies. When those companies make money, so do you. So you can get into the system. You know what I mean? Like, you can still benefit from the system, even though you may not be getting a manufacturing job. The companies are making money. Nike's making money. Apple's making boatloads of money. Now, Apple stock is expensive. Okay? To buy a share of that's expensive. Okay, but you can do it. You save your money and you invest. Okay? That's one way to work the system. Okay? Which most Americans do now through 401ks. Okay, so when you go get a job and they say, we offer you a 401k, are you going to do it? You going to take advantage of it? Yes, Mr. Ebright, I'm going to take advantage of the 401k because I'm going to put in 5% or 6% of my check each month, and my company that I work for is going to put in free money, 5 or 6% into that same account. Free money on top of it. Now, your check's going to be smaller because you're taking out some of yours to save and invest, but you're getting free money, okay? We looked this up, my wife and I, 26 years here. My 401k is about $170,000. Did I retire on that? The answer is no. So I have other investments, which I'll teach you about next week. Okay, I'll do that. Okay. All right, we got to move on. Sorry. All right, taxes. Now, guys, during the war, companies that made uniforms for the soldiers, guns, bullets, boots, all that stuff, helmets, those companies were making big money. The rich were helping pay for the war. So during the war, the wealthy tax rate was 80%. So in 1970, you made $100,000. $80,000 went to the government. You kept 20. How you like that? That's freaking nuts. Now, $20,000 in 1970 is a lot of money. Okay, but still, after the war, they lowered it to 65%. Mellon, the Secretary of Treasury, wanted to lower it to 25%. Congress lowered the wealthy tax rate to 50%. And later, by 1924, they lowered the wealthy tax rate to 25%. Anybody know how much the wealthy pay today in federal income taxes? The top tax bracket in the United States today is 37.6%. So if you're a single person and you make over $300,000 a year, you pay 37.6%. If you're a married couple, it's about $500,000. Does that make sense? Now, Congress isn't stupid. They're going to cut taxes for lower and middle income earners as well. Because there's a lot more of those people than there are rich people. And members of Congress want to get reelected. So they're going to cut taxes for everybody. Okay? But by 1924, guys, it's 25%, which historically is really low. I told you which country has the lowest taxes in the world? Income taxes in the world? don't know this? Mexico has the lowest income taxes in the world. Okay? Does Mexico have a lot of public services like welfare programs and stuff like that? No. So they don't have a lot to spend money on. You know what I mean? Do they have a huge military in Mexico? No. They don't have a lot of money. Government doesn't have a lot of money to spend. You know, they don't have to spend a lot. So they don't need a lot of taxes. The more our government does, the more they got taxes. You understand, right? Or going to debt, which is what we're doing. Okay. Here's the problem with, now, guys, I would love this. I would love this. But if there's an economic slowdown, one of the things you do to get the economy moving again is cut taxes. If you lower this by 3%, the wealthy are going to have 3% more of a lot of money to spend and invest. This creates economic activity, which might grow you out of a recession. But when taxes are this low, and they're even lower for middle and lower classes, a tax cut's not going to do much because you can't really lower it that much. So you got to kind of be careful about how low you go here, if that makes sense. Now, when Trump came in, this was, okay. So Trump cut the corporate income tax and the wealthy income tax and middle and lower. Everybody went down. Okay. Because again, Congress is not stupid. They want to get reelected. They're not going to just cut taxes for the rich. Okay. So, taxes. Okay. Good. Now, next, we want to help our soldiers from World War I. Okay. Congress is going to pass something called the Adjusted Compensation Act. The Adjusted Compensation Act is an insurance policy that veterans are going to get if they serve. Now, most enlistments were 2 years. So you're drafted into the military or you enlist in the military, 2 years. So, if you served in Europe for a year, you got $1.25 for every day you served overseas. So if you served a year overseas, that's $456.25. Okay? And let's say you served for a year at home. That's $365 towards your insurance policy. Add those together, and you've got $821. Now, guys, this is 1920s money, not 2020s money. So $821 is quite a bit of money back then. Now, the soldiers don't get this money until 1945. That's the only way it could pass Congress. In fact, Harding and Coolidge both vetoed it. They said, we don't want to spend all this money. Okay, we're talking about $100 million here. We're not going to spend all that money. We'll push it back to 1945. But if you needed money right away, you could borrow up to 25%. So take 25% of 821, do a little math, you get $205 and some change. Would $205 in 1923 buy you a new set of clothes and get you into an apartment so you could try and find a job? Yes. Okay, so a lot of veterans borrowed that 25% and used it. They'd have to wait till 1945 to get the rest of their money. Follow me? Guys, what happens in 1930? The Great Depression. And these soldiers are going to want their money. And it's going to turn ugly, as I will cover next week. Okay? We get out 20? Yeah. Well, I'm going to end easy on it. Not yet. We're not ending yet. But you don't have to take any more notes. I'm going to talk about the next slide. Let you write it down at the beginning of class tomorrow. I'm going to explain it beforehand. Now, guys, the Adjusted Compensation Act has a nickname. It's called the bonus bill. What's another name for the Adjusted Compensation Act? The bonus bill. That makes for a good multiple choice question on a test.
Say that again, please.
Say again?
What'd you say?
What's another name for the Adjusted Compensation Act? The bonus bill. Okay?
And you said that could be for a bonus question.
No, I said that could be, make for a good multiple choice question. Okay, don't write this down. Okay? I got 5 minutes, I'm going to explain this to you. You will be writing about this on the test as well. So right now you're writing about tariffs, yes? Now, during World War I, remember, we did not get in until 1917, yes? So we're trying to help our allies, so we're going to loan them the equivalent of $9 billion. Guys, this is 19 teens money. This is a lot of money. Now, when you loan somebody money, you expect to get paid back, right? This is 1917, not 2023. I'm just saying. Now, who got blamed for World War I? Germany did. Now, we signed a separate peace deal with Germany, but the Allies signed the Treaty of Versailles with Germany. You've all heard of that. Now, what the Treaty of Versailles said, Germany, we blame you for the war. You're going to have to pay war reparations for the damage you caused to the tune of 33, that's not an M, that's a B, $billion. Now, does Germany have $33 billion? No, they've just been through 4 years of hell. They lost 2 million men of working age, not to mention the casualties. They don't have this money. So, the United States, being the kind people we are and forgiving people that we are, we're going to try and help Germany out so they don't collapse. Now, we're not going to send them $33 billion. We don't have $33 billion. We're waiting on the $9 billion to get paid back from them. So we're going to give them some loans to stay afloat. But these loans, guys, will go to Germany, and they'll turn around and give it to the Allies, and then the Allies are just going to give us our money right back. This is a merry-go-round. Now, in Germany, guys, it's bad. Germany's going to start printing money. Now, they don't use the euro back then. They use the German mark. I remember going to Italy in 1999 before they started using the euro. You bought lunch. It was something like 11,000 lira. That's inflation. So what Germany started doing was printing money and printing money and printing money. If you were 65 years old and you were a German and you saved 100,000 German marks so that you wouldn't have to work the rest of your life, and the government just started printing money, what would happen to the value of your life savings? It would disappear. So when you hear stories, guys, about in Germany where you literally had to bring in a suitcase of cash or a wheelbarrow full of cash to buy a loaf of bread, that is not an exaggeration. This will destroy Germany and lead to the rise of who? Adolf Hitler. Okay? So, war debts are going to be the second cause of the Great Depression, and the first cause I talk about of World War II. These war debts. Now, we're going to end up forgiving most of these debts to our European friends. The only country to pay us back was Finland, to fully pay us back. Now, guys, I was listening to the news about 13 years ago in 2010, and I heard this news story saying that Germany had just paid its last installment to Great Britain on this $33 billion in debt in 2010. It took them 90 years. They paid it off. I think it was just personal. Like, we're going to pay this off. We're going to show you. We're going to pay it. 2010. That's crazy. I was shocked when I heard that because I've been teaching this for years. I didn't know they still owed money. Pretty interesting. Okay. So I'll let you write this down tomorrow when we start class, and we'll move forward. Tomorrow, guys, we get into some of the fun stuff of the 1920s, and I've decided Friday, Video Friday. Yeah. All right. We'll watch a video on the 1920s. Okay. Which should be fun. Lots of good music, dancing, cars and planes, and all kinds of fun stuff.
And then we know how to have the-
Seems like a lot.